I'm joined by Jon Reilly, Chief Investment Officer at Implemented. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
How long have you been with Implemented for?
We started the business about 3.5 years ago, nearly 4 years ago, and it grew out of an in-house portfolio service that we were running in our own advice business, and it started to attract some attention from colleagues in the industry. So we launched it as a separate business and spent a lot of the early years building the governance and process to support an industrialised funds management business.
Okay, so if you could have a wish list of how things worked in the investment area, what would it be? What would it include?
So the key things that we think are important to get right is what I'm talking about today, which is the asset allocation piece. And there's different ways of doing that. We think the most important way is to have a really unconstrained approach to that asset allocation piece. So we think over time that there's inefficiencies that build up in asset classes and things get cheap or expensive, and we should own less or more of them on that basis.
I'll just stop you. You say an unrestrained. You just have to explain that for me. So
sure.
An unrestrained.
So if I can contrast that to the traditional approach that a lot of mainstream funds management work is, a strategic asset allocation versus a dynamic asset allocation.
Okay.
So, for example, they might hold 35% of the portfolio in Aussie equities with the ability to hold plus or minus 5% of that, but tends to stick pretty close to that 35, no matter the underlying valuations and expected future returns.
All right, and so that's a formula that's pretty well tried and true.
I would say it's still the predominant model within the funds management industry. Yeah, so we're trying to implement something different and have a different and longer term focus.
Okay, unrestrained. Is it like a little bit freestyle? Is it like the countdown dances at the end of the song? When they start doing their own dance.
It's still investment management, so it's not that exotic by any means. But it means we have the ability to move to hold less of an asset class, which on the basis of our forecast we expect to have lousy returns going forward. So whereas you've got some constraints around the strategic model to say I'm always going to hold X% in this asset class, if we think there's lousy returns likely to come because of high current prices, for example, then we're happy not to hold any of it.
Okay, so a little bit more proactive.
Absolutely,
and,
yeah.
And what's the reaction to that? Is it?
Look, in the feedback we get from investors and advisors, often it's, haven't you been doing that for us already?
Yeah, makes sense, wouldn't it?
That's the expectations of end investors and SMSF trustees, for example, is that their advisors are providing this proactive service to them.
Yeah, but you're right though, everyone should have been doing that all along.
In our view, absolutely.
Realistically.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're getting some pushback, or you're getting a bit of new kids on the block?
Look, we're getting traction with advisors that understand that there's different ways of doing things, and they've perhaps been frustrated with some of the experiences, maybe through the global financial crisis, where that strategic asset allocation didn't really serve investors all that well.
Yeah.
So we're getting attention from advisors that are looking for some alternative ways of doing things.
And you guys largely grew out of the GFC, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a journey that my colleague and I, when we started the business, we had some frustrations with that mainstream way of thing going back as far as 10 years. Yeah. And as much as I'd love to tell you that we had a grand vision of what the business looks like today, the truth is we didn't. We tried a few things and got a few things wrong and a few things right, but have evolved that into the service that exists today. And it's something we'll continue to do. We're by no means resting on our laurels. We think there's continual improvements, and we look to overseas markets in particular for what smart businesses are doing to provide good portfolio services.
How important is SPAA and the self-managed super fund industry to you guys?
Oh, it's enormous. Look, the pool of retirement savings in Australia, not just on a per capita basis, but in a total sense, is enormous around the world. I think we're the fourth largest pool of retirement savings in the world. $500 billion in self-managed super funds. So it's always going to attract people's attention who want to run money, of course. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, enjoy your time at SPAA. I know it's not your first time, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.